Pleased to thank the ranking member for his leadership and, of course, Congresswoman Eleanor Holmes Norton for her continued consistency in refuting and rebutting wrong-headed and misdirected policies that seem to come year after year. Let me read breaking news from one of the historic newspapers in this month that we begin to focus on Black history. From the Washington Informer, the headline says, D.C. Council blasts House GOP interference in city law. D.C. council members has lashed out at Republicans on Capitol Hill for seeking to meddle in city affairs. For some reason, Ranking Member Rashkin, there was some thought that our friends were riding in on a white horse because there was some disagreement on the council. That disagreement, as you have so effectively said, and with the Congresswoman as well, is that they want to handle their own matters. But let the record be clear that the United States Constitution does not forbid non-citizens from casting their vote in local and state elections and other elections. At least 15 cities currently allow non-citizens to cast ballots in local elections. And particularly, non-citizens were occasionally permitted to cast ballots in local, state, and federal elections in 40 states from the time of the nation's inception until 1926. So we have had a history of local decisions being made by local voters. In this instance, local voters voted and made a decision. Whatever modifications they desire to make, they're not asking this place to implode their work. As we begin to think about voting rights, I would ask my colleagues to help join us in supporting the John Lewis Voting Enhancement Act that we've tried to pass here, Democrats, in this Congress for a long, long time. I'd ask them to help us in the redistricting that skewed and denied Democrats in Texas 2 districts that were legitimately based upon the census that was in fact created by Hispanics and African Americans.
Gentlewoman's time's expired.
I'd like to yield the gentlelady an additional minute.
Gentlelady is yielded 1 minute.
But in redistricting across the nation, North Carolina, Georgia, Texas, were states in which voting rights were directly undermined. Some of the restrictive legislation that was passed in Georgia and Texas are evidence of the oppression of many in the Friends who are across the aisle parties in states to deny people of color their right to vote. And so it looks as if we have an opportunity here for champions of voting rights that seem to be evidenced across the aisle. Join me in the John Robert Lewis Voter Enhancement Act. But at this time, in this month, we ask that you allow the citizens of Washington, D.C., one, at some point to have statehood, but more importantly in this instance, to stay out of home rule decisions or to stay out of decisions granted to them. Those decisions are granted to them. For that reason, I am enthusiastically in opposition to H.J. Res 24 because this legislation goes beyond the boundaries of the responsibilities, duties, and rights of this body. Leave the government of Washington, D.C. to the people of Washington, D.C. I yield back.
The gentleman from Maryland reserves.